So I was fortunate to go to an event from a lawyer's event, and I met the...
At 83, Judge Judy is finally breaking her silence on the one case she couldn't settle in a courtroom, her own divorce. We know her as the toughest woman on television, but behind the bench, she dealt with a private heartbreak that nearly cost her everything. What truly happened between her and Jerry Sheindlin? She's finally revealing the mistakes, the pride, and the specific tragedy that forced her to walk away from the man she loved. Join us as we uncover the real reason behind the split that shocked everyone and the secret that changed their lives forever. Barroom Battle of Titans. In the late 1970s, the New York legal world was a rough, high-pressure environment. Judy Blum was a prosecutor in family court, a job that required a thick skin and a sharp mind. One evening, she went to a local bar where many lawyers and judges gathered to relax after work. She was sitting with a reporter from the New York Post when Jerry Sheindlin, a defense attorney, walked up to them. Jerry did not realize Judy was in the middle of an interview. He interrupted the conversation, which was a major mistake when dealing with someone like Judy. She immediately turned to him and put her finger right in his face. She told him to get away and wait his turn. Instead of being offended or walking away, Jerry was impressed. He looked at her and told her to get her finger out of his face. This moment was the start of everything. Most people were intimidated by Judy, but Jerry stood his ground. They both realized right then that they had met someone who was just as smart and tough as they were. The attraction was instant, but Judy was not about to enter a messy situation. Jerry was still technically married at the time, even though he was separated from his wife. Judy was very clear about her rules. She was a woman of the law and believed in order and clarity. She told Jerry that she would not go out with him or build a relationship while he was still married. She gave him a choice. If he wanted to be with her, he had to get a legal divorce first. She refused to play house or be a secret. Jerry saw that she was serious about commitment, and he moved quickly to finalize his divorce so they could be together properly. In 1977, they officially tied the knot. This was not a small, quiet start to a marriage. It was a massive merger. They had to blend their families together, which included 5 children from their previous marriages. Their home became a loud, busy place filled with kids and constant activity. At the same time, both of their careers were taking off. Jerry eventually became a judge, just like Judy. The early years of their marriage were a balancing act. They were both used to being the boss in a courtroom where their word was law. Coming home to another person who also expected to be in charge created a lot of friction. They loved each other deeply, but they were 2 powerful leaders living under one roof. They had to figure out how to be a team without one person constantly trying to win every argument. But even the strongest bond has a breaking point, and a sudden family tragedy was about to push their marriage to the edge. 2 judges, 1 roof. By the 1980s, Judy and Jerry Sheindlin had a living situation that was both impressive and incredibly difficult. They were both judges now, which meant they spent their entire day sitting on a bench where everyone had to listen to them. In a courtroom, a judge is the final authority. When they went home at the end of the day, neither of them wanted to stop being the boss. This created a major power struggle. They both had strong personalities, which is a polite way of saying they were both stubborn and outspoken. They suffered from what Judy called the last word syndrome. If Jerry made a point, Judy had to counter it. If Judy gave an instruction, Jerry had a different way of doing things. The biggest challenge was transitioning from their professional roles to their personal lives. In their jobs, they were the boss. They were used to people following their orders without question. But a marriage is supposed to be a partnership of equals. It is hard to be a partner when you are trained to be a ruler. This caused constant friction. They argued about how to raise their 5 children, how to manage the house, and even small, everyday decisions. While they respected each other's intelligence, they simply did not know how to turn off their professional personas when they walked through the front door. The real breaking point came in 1990. Judy's father, Murray Blum, passed away. He was the most important person in her life and her biggest hero. When he died, Judy's world fell apart. For the first time, this tough, fearless woman felt completely vulnerable and weak. She was going through an emotional collapse and needed a specific kind of support. This is where the unspoken expectation caused a disaster. Judy later confessed that she wanted Jerry to take care of her during this time. However, she did not tell him that. She believed that because he was her husband, he should just know what she needed without being asked. She wanted him to be her rock, but Jerry did not understand the depth of her pain or what he was supposed to do. He gave her space when she actually wanted him to pull her closer. Because he didn't read her mind, Judy felt lonely and abandoned in her grief. The tension finally exploded in a massive argument. Judy was hurting and angry, and she told Jerry that if things didn't change, she wanted a divorce. She was likely looking for him to fight for her or apologize. Instead, Jerry let his own pride get in the way. He looked at her and said, "I dare you." It was the ultimate challenge. Judy, who never backs down from a dare, took him seriously. She filed for divorce the very next day, ending their 14-year marriage over a moment of pure stubbornness. Now, Judy was single and famous, but she was about to find out that being right didn't feel as good as she thought it would. 1 year living apart. After the divorce was finalized in 1990, Judy found herself in a strange position. Professionally, her life was hitting new heights. This was the early 1990s, and she was gaining national attention for her tough-as-nails reputation in the courtroom. However, she quickly realized that success felt empty without someone to share it with. When she achieved something great at work, Jerry was no longer the first person she could call. The house was quiet, and the last words she used to hate were replaced by a silence that felt much worse. She had won the power struggle, but she lost her best friend. Jerry was struggling just as much, if not more. On the surface, he was still a respected judge, but behind closed doors, he admitted he felt completely lost. He realized that even though Judy was tough and could be difficult to argue with, she was the love of his life. He found that his days were less interesting without her energy and intelligence around him. He began to see that his pride, the same pride that made him say, "I dare you," had cost him the most important relationship he ever had. The two of them were experiencing a deep psychological void. At first, the divorce might have felt like a relief because the fighting had stopped, but that relief soon turned into regret. They both began to realize that the things they argued about were actually very small compared to the bond they had built over 14 years. They missed each other's presence in the kitchen, the shared jokes about their legal cases, and the way they understood each other's professional stress. Even though they were legally divorced, they couldn't stay away from each other completely. They still had 5 children between them, which meant their lives stayed connected. They would see each other at family events or occasionally meet to talk. Sometimes these meetings ended in more arguing, but other times they ended in shared memories. There was clearly unfinished business between them. Neither of them had started a serious new life with anyone else because deep down they were still tied to one another. They were two people living separate lives, but they were still orbiting each other, waiting for something to change. They were about to find out that all it takes is one accidental meeting to realize that a divorce certificate is just a piece of paper. The second chance sin. A year after their divorce, fate stepped in to show Judy and Jerry that their separation was a mistake. They ran into each other at a mutual friends event held near the courthouse area in New York. When they saw each other, the anger from their divorce seemed to vanish. Judy looked at Jerry and had a moment of total clarity. She realized that they were both miserable and that being apart was simply ridiculous. They were two people who clearly belonged together, yet they were letting their stubbornness keep them in separate homes. After that meeting, they went for a long walk through downtown Manhattan. This walk was the turning point for their relationship. Instead of arguing about who was right or who was wrong in the past, they talked about how much they missed their life together. They discussed their mistakes and how they had both changed during their year apart. During this conversation, they reached a very simple conclusion. They didn't want to live without each other anymore. There was no grand romantic proposal. It was a very practical, matter-of-fact decision between two people who were tired of being lonely. They walked right over to the clerk's office to get a marriage license. To them, it wasn't about a fancy party or a big ceremony. It was about fixing what they had broken. In 1991, just a year after they had legally ended their first marriage, they stood before a judge and got married for the second time. They decided to commit to each other again, but this time they promised to do things differently. Judy often jokes about this by saying that she married the same man twice, but the second time she used stronger glue. This wasn't just a funny line, it was a deep truth. The stronger glue represented the lessons they had learned. They realized that their bond was more important than their egos. They understood that they had to listen more and argue less. The second marriage held firm because they had both experienced the pain of losing each other, and they were determined never to let it happen again. They had gone through the fire of a divorce and came out with a partnership that was tougher than ever. Now that they were back together, they had to figure out a new way to live without repeating the same old mistakes. The fame trap tension. When Judy and Jerry remarried in 1991, they believed the biggest hurdles were behind them. They had survived a divorce and learned to manage their egos. However, they were about to face a challenge that neither of them could have predicted: the transformative power of global fame. In the mid-1990s, Judy transitioned from a respected New York judge to a household name. As Judge Judy became a massive hit, the power balance in their home shifted in a way that tested their stronger glue to its absolute limit. Before the cameras, they were professional equals. They were both judges who commanded respect in their own courtrooms. But suddenly, the world viewed Judy as a superstar, while Jerry remained a private citizen. This created a fame trap, where the public's perception of them didn't match their reality as a couple. Everywhere they went, people pushed Jerry aside to get to Judy. He went from being a prominent legal figure to being Judge Judy's husband. For a man with a strong personality who was used to his own spotlight, this could have been a recipe for disaster. It required Jerry to make a difficult choice. He had to shrink his ego so that his wife could shine. Living with a legend meant their private life was no longer entirely private. The growing fame brought new pressures that they hadn't faced in the 1980s. When they argued now, the stakes felt higher because they were under a microscope. Judy had to be extremely careful to leave her television persona, the woman who snaps at people and demands instant obedience, at the studio. If she brought that Judge Judy attitude home to Jerry, it would have felt like she was treating him like a defendant rather than a partner. They had to create a sanctuary where Judy was just Judy, and Jerry was her equal, regardless of whose name was on the television screen. Jerry also had to find his own way to handle the shift. Instead of becoming resentful of her success, he leaned into a role of quiet support. He became her protector and her most trusted advisor. He was the one person who could tell her the truth when the rest of the world was telling her what she wanted to hear. This transition was a true test of their commitment. They had to navigate the reality of living with one of America's most recognizable faces, while keeping their bond grounded in the simple, everyday love they had rediscovered. This period taught them that success is only enjoyable if you have a partner who isn't threatened by it. They realized that their marriage wasn't a competition to see who was more famous or more powerful. By the time the show reached its peak, they had mastered the art of being a team in the face of public pressure. They proved that a power couple only works if both people feel powerful within the relationship, even if only one is famous outside of it. But while they were learning to handle the crowds and the cameras, they realized that the best way to stay close was to actually spend some time apart. 47-year power bond. After their second wedding in 1991, Judy and Jerry realized that if they wanted their marriage to last, they couldn't go back to their old ways. They had to change how they treated one another. The biggest change was choosing communication over pride. In their first marriage, they acted like opinionated judges, even at the dinner table. They were always looking for a way to win the argument. After getting back together, they made a conscious effort to become listeners. Jerry famously said that Judy learned to let him talk, and he learned when it was time for him to stop. They stopped seeing every conversation as a case to be won and started seeing it as a way to understand each other. This shift allowed them to resolve problems before they turned into the kind of resentment that leads to divorce. Another key to their long-term success is what Judy calls the 24-hour rule. Judy believes that spending 24 hours a day together is deadly for a relationship. Even though they love each other, they make sure to lead separate lives in some ways. They have their own interests, their own work, and their own space. Judy spent decades filming her show in California while living in other states, which meant they weren't constantly on top of each other. By having their own separate experiences, they always have something new to talk about when they come back together. This space prevents them from getting bored or feeling trapped. It keeps the relationship fresh because they are two independent people choosing to be together rather than two people who are stuck together. Surprisingly, physical attraction has also played a very big role in their bond, even as they have aged. Judy has been very open about this in recent years. Even in 2024 and 2025, with Jerry being 90 years old, Judy still talks about how fit and attractive he is. She often mentions that he takes great care of his physique and looks wonderful in his clothes. She believes that keeping that spark alive is important for a long-term marriage. By staying attracted to one another and taking care of themselves, they have maintained a romantic connection that many couples lose over time. For Judy, Jerry isn't just her husband. He is still the man who caught her eye in that New York bar decades ago. Perhaps the most important change in Judy herself is how she views vulnerability. On television, she is Judge Judy, a tough person who is loud and never wrong. But at home, she learned that being a good wife is very different from being a good judge. She discovered that vulnerability is actually a strength. She stopped trying to be the tough one all the time and started focusing on being kind. She famously said that marriage isn't about being right, it's about being kind. In the past, she would fight until she proved she was right, even if it hurt Jerry's feelings. Now she understands that it is better to be kind, keep the peace, than to win a point and cause a fight. This softer side of her is what has allowed the marriage to survive for nearly 5 decades. By letting go of her need to control everything and learning to be vulnerable, Judy found a level of happiness she never had during her first marriage. They have turned their household from a courtroom into a sanctuary of mutual respect. They still have their opinions, and they still have their spirited debates, but the foundation is now built on kindness rather than a power struggle. This balance of independence, attraction, and emotional honesty is the stronger glue she always talks about. Their fire is still burning bright, but now they are preparing for a quieter chapter in the sun. The luxury of distance. One of the most practical secrets to Judy's and Jerry's long-term success is a concept that might seem surprising to many couples. They truly value their time apart. Judy has often spoken about her belief that spending 24 hours a day together is deadly for a relationship. She realized that even the deepest love can become suffocating if two people never have the chance to breathe on their own. For decades, the logistics of Judy's career actually helped save her marriage. Because she filmed her show in California while her primary life was on the East Coast, the couple were forced to spend several days a week in different time zones. This physical distance acted as a reset button for their relationship. Instead of falling into a routine where they sat in the same room every night, perhaps getting annoyed by small habits or running out of things to talk about, they had the luxury of missing each other. When Judy would fly back home after a week of work, the reunion was exciting. They weren't just two people sharing a house, they were two people who were genuinely happy to see each other again. This separation prevented them from taking one another for granted and kept the relationship from feeling like a monotonous chore. Beyond just physical distance, they also maintained a healthy mental distance by having their own separate lives and interests. Jerry has always had his own social circles, hobbies, and daily routines that have nothing to do with Judy's television empire. Judy, likewise, has her own professional world and personal passions. They learned that a healthy marriage is not about two people becoming one person, it is about two complete independent individuals choosing to share a path. By maintaining their own identities, they always brought fresh energy and new stories back to the dinner table. They didn't rely on each other for 100% of their happiness, which took a massive amount of pressure off the marriage. This independence is a major part of why their second marriage has lasted nearly 5 times longer than their first. In their younger years, they were constantly clashing because they were always in each other's space, trying to control one another. The luxury of distance taught them that control is the opposite of love. By giving each other the freedom to be individuals, they found that they actually wanted to be closer when they were together. They moved from a relationship based on need to one based on want. They didn't need to be together to function, but they wanted to be together because life was simply better that way. Today, even though Judy is no longer flying across the country for her original show, they still find ways to maintain this balance. Whether it is having separate rooms to retreat to or simply spending the afternoon pursuing different tasks, they respect the need for space. They have proven that the strongest bond isn't the one that is the tightest, but the one that is flexible enough to let both people grow. This balance of independence and intimacy is the final piece of the puzzle that has kept their fire burning for 47 years. But even with all the wealth, the fame, and the perfect balance of space, Judy was about to realize that her greatest achievement had nothing to do with a courtroom. New York, Florida fire. Today, Judy and Jerry Sheindlin are living proof that a marriage can survive almost anything if both people are willing to grow. Throughout Judy's massive career, Jerry has been her most consistent support system. During the 25 years she filmed Judge Judy, Jerry was often right there behind the scenes. He wasn't jealous of her fame or the fact that she became one of the most recognizable faces in the world. Instead, he was proud of her. When she decided to end her long-running show in 2021 and start a brand new one called Judy Justice, Jerry was the one cheering her on. He understood how hard she worked and never tried to compete with her success. This support was a huge change from their early years, when they struggled with who was the boss. Now that they are in their 80s and 90s, they live a very comfortable and busy life that spans several states. They don't just stay in one place, they move between homes in New York, Florida, and Rhode Island. This multi-state life helps keep things exciting. In Florida, they enjoy the warm weather and a more relaxed pace. In New York, they stay connected to the fast-paced energy where their careers first began. By moving around and enjoying different environments, they avoid the boredom that can sometimes settle into a long marriage. They spend their days surrounded by their many children and grandchildren, making their family the center of their world. The way they communicate has also completely changed. In the 1980s, their arguments were like legal battles where both people wanted to win. Today, they have refined the final word. They still have disagreements because they are both still very opinionated people, but the way those arguments end is different. Instead of ending in a dare to get a divorce or weeks of cold silence, their clashes usually end in laughter. Jerry often jokes that even at 90 years old, he still can't win an argument with her. Judy laughs along because she knows it's true. They have realized that most things aren't worth a real fight. They have learned to poke fun at their own stubbornness, which turns a potential argument into a shared joke. At 83 years old, Judy has been reflecting a lot on what truly matters. She has achieved everything a person could want in terms of a career. She has more money than she could ever spend. She is famous across the globe, and she is respected by her peers. But her ultimate lesson is that none of those things actually matter on their own. She recently shared that you can have all the success and respect in the world, but if you lose the person who truly knows you, you have nothing. To her, Jerry is the only person who knows the real Judy, the one without the black robe and the gavel. He knows her history, her mistakes, and her heart. She realizes now that their divorce in 1990 was a necessary part of their story because it taught them the value of what they had. They had to lose their marriage to understand that they couldn't live without it. This sense of gratitude is what keeps their fire going today. They don't take each other for granted anymore because they remember what the silence of that year apart felt like. Their marriage is no longer a power struggle, it is a sanctuary. They have proven that even the toughest, most independent people can find a way to be kind and vulnerable if they value the relationship more than being right. Their story shows that it is never too late to fix a mistake or to start over with the person you love. They have moved past the drama of the courtroom and the heat of their younger years into a season of deep friendship and mutual admiration. After nearly 50 years and 2 weddings, Judy and Jerry have finally reached their final verdict on love. After 47 years and 2 weddings, Judy and Jerry Sheindlin have reached their final verdict. Their journey proves that even the most stubborn hearts can learn to bend. They survived the fire of pride and the silence of separation to discover that being right is never as important as being together. Today, they are a team built on kindness, space, and laughter. What do you think of Judy's second chance success? Tell us in the comments. Like and subscribe for more untold celebrity stories, and ring the bell so you never miss an update.